Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Rob of Ro2R Review. Welcome back to the channel. And today we get to talk about everyone's favorite company, Electronic Arts, because they are in the news today for some interesting quotes about how they are choosing to approach Nintendo and the Switch. Yep, we're basically looking at another case of EA just being EA, saying stupid things, giving us insight into their really poor business practices that in a lot of ways feel very anti-consumer. This thing isn't the same as what we've seen with like Battlefront 2 as far as anti-consumer, as far as microtransactions and monetization. It's not that kind of anti-consumer, but it's definitely anti-gamer and it's anti-Nintendo and anti-Nintendo fan. And that's a huge problem because that's one of the three major console revenue sort of streams within the industry, one of the three main console fan bases. And of course, for me, I'm a Nintendo fan, so it affects me. And I'm pretty sure most of you guys also Nintendo fans, so it affects you guys. So what we're talking about is, like I said, some quotes about their approach specifically to making or releasing or developing games on the Nintendo Switch. This comes from everybody's favorite CEO for everybody's favorite company, Andrew Wilson, on a conference call, I believe it was, or an investor's call. And in responding to a question about why a game like The Sims isn't coming to the Nintendo Switch or hasn't already come to the Nintendo Switch, that's where he went a little bit deeper into their philosophy. And so through a tweet from Go Nintendo and their article, which I'll link below, I found the quotes here of what he said about how they approach the Nintendo Switch, basically letting us know that they just don't care about the Switch. They don't see it as a viable market, a viable platform. They feel that the people who game on the Nintendo Switch would prefer to play their games on other consoles because they typically are going to own other consoles. So they see it as a big waste of time and just not interesting or important for them to put some of their games on the Nintendo console, which is completely baffling to me. You know, trying to put my Nintendo fanboy bias aside of it's my favorite console, so just please put every game on my favorite console. I think that, you know, while that is true, I think that other elements of this are true, such as it just makes sense for 1,000 other reasons, which I'll get into. But first, let me just read these quotes here to kind of give you guys an idea of what he actually said. Anytime we're evaluating platform conversations, we're really looking at a couple of things. One, does the game really fit the profile of that platform in terms of the control or the community ecosystem? Whatever that means. Two, do we think the community playing on that platform would appreciate the game and go there, or would they prefer to play it somewhere else? We have a lot of data that would suggest a great many Switch owners also own a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One or a PC, and very often choose to play the games that we make on those platforms, even though they have a Switch, and they enjoy a lot of great content on the Switch. And so he also went on to talk a little bit about The Sims specifically, but I don't want to get into that because that's not really as relevant. This right here really gives us a behind-the-scenes look into the philosophy at EA, specifically when they relate to Nintendo. And I've discussed this before. One of my most popular videos I'd ever made was discussing why it seems like EA effectively hates Nintendo. This was like 2 years ago or so. And so I just feel like this conversation has been going on for a while. We've seen this problem with EA for a while. For pretty much all of the Switch's life, the only games they've released on the Nintendo Switch are FIFA games. That's it. And as we all know, those games are stripped of many, many features. So they clearly have been just not looking at the Switch as an actual viable platform. Here, when we try to break down a lot of what he said, I kind of joked about it here, but the first thing he says almost makes no sense. Does the game really fit the profile of that platform in terms of the control or the community ecosystem? I really don't know what he's trying to say with those comments, especially in terms of control. What does that mean? This controller is identical to everything being played on every other platform unless you're playing with a keyboard and mouse on a PC. But also, a huge proportion of people playing on PCs are using controllers anyway. In fact, I believe you can use the Switch controller on the PC. I might be wrong on that because I don't really game on my PC, but the point is, the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation, the Xbox, the Switch, PC controllers, they're all the damn same. We're going to be using this setup with the same 4 buttons, 2 analog sticks, 4 triggers for frickin' an eternity. This is like never going to change. So I don't know if he means control or something totally different. The community ecosystem, I think what he's trying to say, or what he thinks he's trying to say, is that the kind of games that Nintendo Switch gamers like aren't the same as the kind of games that EA makes. I really think he's trying to boil it down to that. We make different games than what Nintendo gamers would like. That's what he thinks. Probably thinking about sports simulations, Need for Speed games, Star Wars games. For some reason, he must be thinking stuff like that. Many of their other IPs, Battlefield and things like that. I just think that he or EA have this weird sort of completely bananas mindset that if you play Nintendo, you only like things like Mario or cutesy cuddly things like Pokemon and Kirby, and you can't possibly look at anything outside the box of cute, cuddly, family-friendly Nintendo stuff. And so these hardcore, mature games, meant for teenagers and 20-somethings, they're too bloody and mature and hardcore simulation for a Kirby fan to enjoy. I mean, I'm definitely paraphrasing, and I'm definitely coming to my own assumption and my own interpretation of these words. But I feel good about this interpretation, and I really think that he's trying to say something like that. And if there's any truth to that, which I think there is a lot of truth to that, then it is the most incorrect statement I think anyone could ever make. He talks in the other statement about we have all this data that shows, Switch gamers or people who have a Switch prefer to play their games this, that way, or the other on this platform or whatever. Well, I'm willing to bet there's a ton of data out there that also shows how well all of this third-party content has been selling on the Nintendo Switch, and how interested Nintendo Switch gamers are in all of this mature content that is now available on the current Nintendo platform. Clearly, there's money to be made, there are sales to be had, and, heaven forbid we think of this, there's gamers and consumers to make happy. There are appetites for certain content on this portable device that you could satiate by releasing XYZ games or paying attention to this platform on the Nintendo Switch. It is so clear and obvious to me, and I know to a lot of you guys, if not all of you guys as well. I mean, this isn't a great mystery, but EA and Andrew Wilson here with these comments are treating it like this great mystery, like we just can't crack the code of the Nintendo Switch. Dude, so many other companies, indie developers, big budget studios, everyone releasing a freaking barrage of games on the Nintendo Switch is seeing insane amounts of money. Look at Bloodstained, for example. That game, the worst version of the game, the most incomplete, broken, buggy mess, I believe sold the most copies on the Switch. I believe the headline was more than the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One combined. Oh my god, games sell on the Nintendo Switch, and it's just insane to me that they don't see that. Not to mention another huge element here, which is if you have any sort of vision or integrity with how you develop your games and where you release your games. I know asking for vision and integrity from a company like EA is ludicrous and obviously not going to work out for anybody, but if you do, you start to then care about that market, those consumers who play and prefer that platform, and you start to realize you could take advantage of what makes games on that platform unique, which are the Joy-Cons and, of course, the portable play. You should be excited to say we can make a game like Battlefield or The Sims or, heaven forbid, frickin' Star Wars, my beloved Star Wars. Those games, you should be excited to put them on a machine that can be played portably because people will have so much more of an opportunity to play your game. And this whole thing feeds into the other big point he makes here about we have analytic data that shows that people who have a Switch prefer to play our games on a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One because they already have those consoles anyway, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's what you sound like, Andrew. Anyway, this feeds into that other comment he was saying about Switch gamers playing on other consoles instead. And again, going back to that portable nature and the unique things about the Switch, this is why I don't think it's as true as he's saying, because I think millions of gamers, millions of Switch owners prefer to pick up games on the Switch when it might be an option on the PlayStation, Xbox, or PC because they get an additional portable option out of it. I've done that with several games. I own and love and play my PS4 and Xbox One often. I have so many games for those consoles right alongside my Switch and my Wii U, for example. I do. However, I did decide to pick up Wolfenstein on my Nintendo Switch, and I decided to pick up Mortal Kombat 11 on my Nintendo Switch, and it's for that exact reason. I get the same game, graphically maybe not quite there. I know that I'm sacrificing possibly some graphical fidelity, but I get the same game, only I can play it portably, and I've taken advantage of it with both of those games many times, and those are just two examples popping into my head. And so, yeah, I think you might say some people might prefer the PlayStation or Xbox over the Switch version because it's going to look that much better, sure, whatever. But I think you're going to get just as many, if not sometimes more people who would say, well, I'll pick it on my Switch over my PlayStation or my Xbox because I get it portably. And so the whole point is you have three console streams, three console platforms to release your games on, and PC as well, and each one has a reason to consider it. I mean, why would you consider an Xbox One version when there's probably plenty of data that shows Xbox One owners also own PlayStation 4s and PCs, and our data shows that they prefer to play it on the PlayStation 4 over the Xbox One. So why wouldn't you just drop the goddamn Xbox One version? The reason is because this whole thing is a farce and a bunch of nonsense and doesn't really mean anything, and so there's no consistency to this story. It's literally, you should see there's an advantage to the PlayStation 4 version, there's an advantage to the Xbox One version, and there's clearly an advantage to the Switch version. So you basically cast as wide a net as possible with your game. You throw it to every available platform, knowing every platform is going to sell. And the thing is, complaining about this basically gives us a reason to sort of side with EA and want to give EA something here, because by wanting stuff on the Switch, it means EA, you only make more money because you sell more copies to more people because you're putting it on more platforms. The math is obvious. Now, I understand in some previous generations, the N64 generation and the Wii U generation specifically, third parties really struggled. I don't throw GameCube in there. People want to throw GameCube in there, but I don't think that's fair because GameCube had incredible third-party support, and a lot of those games sold pretty darn well. Not the best maybe of every version, but they sold fine. So I don't consider the GameCube a third-party struggling generation for Nintendo, but the 64 and the Wii U, yes. And so in those situations, it's easier for us, the consumer, to understand the business decision to maybe ignore the platform not really generating revenue. But that's not the damned Switch. The Switch is generating revenue for Nintendo, for third parties, for indies. It's just all over the place. Like, it's not a mystery to any of us. And so I just keep kind of coming back to this thing. This whole thing is baffling, and it just confirms what we already knew, which is that EA is ridiculous. They are out of touch. They can't get good PR to save their damned lives. And it's honestly pretty depressing. And I'll say this here at the end of this video. It's depressing to me because I think there's just a lot of potential for good stuff to be happening here. And I think that as much as none of us like EA and they make mistakes and we want to see them, fail and do all these things. I mean, I don't want to see them fail. I don't want people to lose jobs, and I don't want the company to close. I'm not that. But what we want to see is to see them reap what they've sown, basically, and have to learn lessons and become a better company. But still, despite the fact that that's true, they do make some good games that I like and that I care about. Most notably, Star Wars. I want Star Wars on the Nintendo Switch. Most people want Star Wars on the Nintendo Switch. And the problem with this company having this philosophy towards the Switch is they own, as ridiculous as it is, exclusive rights for now to developing Star Wars games, which means we're not going to see Star Wars games on the Switch for who knows how long, or on a Nintendo console for who knows how long. That is just bad all around. That's something Lucasfilm and Disney should be looking at. Beyond the microtransactions kerfuffle with Battlefront 2, they should also be saying, hey, why are you ignoring one of the three major revenue streams on the market? Why are you ignoring this huge fan base, this huge consumer base of the Nintendo console? I mean, you're releasing everything on the Xbox One. Who's buying stuff for the Xbox One right now? Not many people. And I'm not trying to slam the Xbox. I love the Xbox, you guys, but it's only going down. And so why aren't you ignoring them? It truly makes no sense. And at this point, I've been ranting this whole video, and so I need to calm down and I need to wrap this up. These are my thoughts. This is what EA and Andrew Wilson have said. You've heard my opinions. I'm not a big fan of this. I think it's just bad business all around, and it's bad PR. So I know, again, most of you guys, most of my audience, we're all Nintendo fans and Switch fans. We all have issues with EA. So what do you think? I mean, is this as ridiculous as I've laid it out to be? Was my rant justified, or am I just totally out of my mind here? I don't think anyone will think that, because we all have issues with EA. Pretty sad to hear that this is the case, and I don't know when this will change. Maybe with Nintendo's next console, somehow they managed to rope EA in, but I don't know. It's like, yeah, we hate EA and we don't care about EA, but at the same time, I kind of care about EA. Sometimes I do, you guys. I care about some of the games they make. I can't help but say that that's true, especially Star Wars. So I would like to see this just get fixed. I would like to see EA become a better company, and I would like to see them acknowledge the damn huge user base on the Switch that's buying every game that people throw at it. So none of this story adds up. It's totally inconsistent, and it's clearly a lie that they just have some kind of bias against Nintendo. Something went wrong between these two companies in the past couple years, and so this is where we are. What do you think? Talk about it below. This video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R, and I'll catch you next time on another video.